Welcome to Cody in the Cinema, and today I'm going to discuss 3 films that have horror elements or a horror scene that works really well in a movie that otherwise would not be considered horror. And I wanted to start with a classic, Sleeping Beauty, from my childhood. And when I was a little kid, I was scared to death of the spindle scene. And if you're unfamiliar, Maleficent, the evil sorceress, is trying to trick Aurora into touching a spindle that is cursed that will put her into a sleeping state. And she becomes this like green light in the fireplace with eerie music playing, and it wakes up the princess. And I didn't know this until I was looking more into this for this video, but apparently she calls in her own voice Aurora, and that's part of that like creepy, eerie sound that you hear. And so she's beckoning her to go upstairs and follow this green glowing light in her own name. Real creepy. And then you hear the other fairies, they're trying to come and save her, and she just wanders toward the spindle until she eventually touches it. That has to have some of the best artwork and direction, just like the whole movie terrified me as a kid in Sleeping Beauty. My second recommendation for something you should check out here that makes good use of a horror element in a not horror movie is the absolute classic from Ingmar Bergman, Wild Strawberries. And Sjöström's character is having a dream. And it's a dream I think we can all relate to for anyone who's had a nightmare filled with solitude and emptiness, in which his character has awoken in some kind of a world, an empty street, where the clock doesn't look right, it's missing some pieces, and a carriage or something or another comes by, and it's in black and white, and he looks to ask someone a question, but that person's face is like squished in and unnatural. This plays on some of the fears that I had when I was a child watching something like Are You Afraid of the Dark on Nickelodeon. Extremely isolating, eerie, and it provides that sense of a nightmare even more effectively, in my opinion, than something like Fellini's 8.5 scene at the beginning. And if you've ever had a nightmare where you're the only one around and you don't know what to do and you have no bearing in reality, that scene is for you. And a movie that otherwise, like I said, is not particularly scary. And finally, I wanted to talk about a film that I believe has gone a little under the radar over the years, that has some good scenes and one truly great horror scene. And this is a claymation, apparently rated G, yeah right, movie called The Adventures of Mark Twain. I only have a DVD left of it. I don't know what happened to the case. And The Adventures of Mark Twain. So this is a claymation movie about Mark Twain setting into the atmosphere to go meet Halley's Comet, and these kids sneak on board, and they sort of get wrapped up in both the journey and his stories. And at one point, Mark Twain says, "Fame is but a vapor. The only earthly certainty is oblivion." And about that time, he introduces them to the mysterious stranger who calls himself, or itself, Satan. And it holds this like mask on a straight pole, and it is friendly toward the children at first, provides them food and fruit, what they like to eat. It even allows them to make a little village of clay animals and people. And the kids formulate this fun little village of villagers and cattle and so forth. and they make a little king up in a castle, and the mysterious stranger gives life to these beings. But something goes wrong, and the villagers won't stop whining at each other in these eerie, grating conversations that are nonsensical. And this gentle, smiling, mysterious stranger suddenly turns quite demonic and evil, like a flip of a switch, and begins destroying the creation that the children have made. And it is creepy. In fact, I first saw this as a disturbing video on YouTube. You'll probably be able to find it. I know that at one point there were 4 or 5 videos on YouTube at least, but it is so freaky and nihilistic, and it's one of my favorite scenes. That is, and other than that, I mean, it is just kind of like this, you know, shaking the camera there, this claymation movie that, like I said, otherwise is pretty wholesome, but man, that scene is dark. So those are 3 that I thought of around this topic of horror and non-horror movies. Let me know some of your favorites in the comments. Things that seem, maybe they're out of place, maybe they're not, maybe they fit really well into the narrative. All right, see you next time on Cody in the Cinema.